Pittsburgh Steelers fans, welcome to another episode of the Steelers Preview. I am Jeff Hartman, editor of BehindTheSteelCurtain.com. Joining me as always to round out the triumphant trio is Dave Schofield and Bryan Davis. Dave, how you doing this evening?
I'm doing all right, Jeff. Just trying to catch up. Man, yesterday was a crazy day with Steelers stuff. We had all kinds of stuff going on.
Yes, it was. Bryan, how are you doing this fine evening?
Hold on a second, guys. They're about to do the next guy from the Veterans Committee of the Hall of Fame, the Centennial class, because I think they're about to wrap it up because they're taking a long time to get these 15 guys in. But, okay. We're good. We're good.
I don't want to get ahead of ourselves and go into the Around the Horn segment, but to give you all an idea as to what this looked like. So I'm at work. Dave is at home. Bryan is delaying going to work for the announcement of the Centennial class. We're waiting to hear if Donnie Shell gets in or not. We know how it ended up. And so there's a text chain between the three of us, and we're sitting there. I'm at my computer. We're ready to get this article published. Dave did a great job with the pre-write. We're all lending some we're all doing something. Bryan's doing the photo. I'm doing the back end stuff. Dave's typing it up, getting the stats together. And it's this longest process ever. And I'm waiting for Bryan to tell me he's in or he's not in. He goes, well, they just let one other guy in. Now they went to commercial. Now they're back.
Now they're talking to the guy for 20 minutes.
Back to commercial.
What's
again.
crazy about
Now
that is they announced some guys. I'm like, guys, I'm going mobile. I've got it on the app on my phone. I got to take my son to preschool. I drive my son to preschool, go in, drop him off, talk to the teacher for a second, drive back home, and they still hadn't announced anyone else in that time.
He's not.
It was
kidding,
ridiculous. They drew that out, and then all of a sudden, I'm like, okay, they're going to announce one, then they're going to draw it out again. Then they just shot like 4 of them straight in a row. So it was
My
crazy.
wife was home, and she's like, "When is this over?" Because I told her, I'm going to be about 15 minutes. I just want to watch this. They took 2 hours.
Oh,
my
gosh.
I mean,
that's typical NFL fashion, though. They want
no.
every second.
It was about an hour and 45 minutes.
Okay. All right, correctorson. Thanks so much for that. Like my 12-year-old son. No, it's not 9 o'clock, Dad. It's 8:57. All right.
Yeah. Well, they started at 8:15 and they drug it out for the whole rest of the show, which went till 10 o'clock. So
well,
like,
it makes sense because we're not going away, and they saved guys like Donnie Shell and Cliff Harris and guys like that towards the end to because you knew you were waiting on those guys.
Yeah.
So you have idiots like me that's just like they're going, come on, I gotta go to work.
What was worth the wait was them having Donnie Shell live in studio and his 9+ minutes talk with them on.
Yeah, that was good stuff.
Good morning football,
was like 20 minutes.
Yeah. Well, no. Donnie Shell's was fantastic. It was.
It was really good.
Come to find out, he found out on Monday that he got in and had to keep it a secret until
from his former teammates.
Yeah, and he said that was one of the most difficult things he's ever had to do in his entire life. And so that's how he was in. I don't even know where that's filmed, if it's in New York or if it's in LA.
That's in Los Angeles, I think.
Okay. So he probably, I don't think he lives there. So they flew him out so he could be there live. Crazy. And
Carmichael was the same way, and he couldn't even tell his son.
That's nuts.
He was talking about having to keep it from his own son.
Wow.
Well, this is a good segue into our Around the Horn segment, which is how we start every show for the Steelers preview. And that's where the three of us talk about something that was noteworthy from the week. And for once, there's a lot of stuff to choose from in regards to the past week and news around the black and gold. Let's leave Donnie Shell and Bill Cowher out of it. We've talked about Bill Cowher on the show last Sunday. We'll talk about Donnie Shell in a second, but let's talk about any other news. There's plenty of it. Bryan, let's start with you. What's your Around the Horn contribution tonight?
Well, it still surrounds the Hall of Fame, but it does not surround Donnie or the Chin. What it surrounds is the fact that those 10 guys that did not get in, and I would probably say about 4 and probably about another 9 other guys from coaches and contributors that didn't get in, they are probably going to be the list that the Veterans Committee pulls from the next 10 years or so. So they typically take about 1 or 2 veterans a year. So every single year when you see that's probably the list that they go on first. So when I'm thinking about it, and I think of a guy like LC Greenwood, who we desperately want to get in, who thought should have been on this list now. I would probably think in the next 10 years, he's probably in consideration. I'm probably closer to, at this point, he's passed away, so they could probably draw it out. But at this point, it's probably looking about 27 to 30. So you're looking at probably 2027, maybe, when you might see him getting consideration.
Who was the member of the Dallas Cowboys? I want to say it was a receiver that did not get in, and they had video of that, and that was heartbreaking.
Drew Pearson.
Yes.
And
I obviously, that was back from the 70s, and he was fully expecting to get in. He had family there, and he didn't get in. And it just looked like he was absolutely devastated. I hate seeing that stuff. I really do. It's just so uncomfortable, and I don't know, but I hope LC gets in. I really do at some point, and I hope that it's soon enough that not too many more of his 1970 Steelers brethren have passed on, because we know that they're not getting any younger, period. So LC, now it's time to turn our attention to him with Donnie Shell in, and boy, did the Steelers do a job on pumping him up. You know, they had all those interviews, and Art Rooney was making phone calls, and Dick LeBeau was in that meeting, and he was talking him up. But Tony
Dungy's been a big advocate for him for a long time.
Tony Dungy had him introduce him, or he was his presenter when Tony Dungy got his gold jacket, and that was intentional. So Donnie Shell finally gets in. Kudos to him. LC Greenwood, that's next. So Dave.
And you know what? Can I jump in?
Yeah, sure.
That was done in 2001 when Lynn Swann got in. His presenter was John Stallworth. And Lynn Swann, in his induction speech, said the Hall of Fame's not complete until John Stallworth gets in very next year. Johnny Stallworth's there, and guess who's in attendance?
BAD. Hey, quick question for you guys. If Troy Polamalu gets in, and I say if just because it's not solidified, who do you think he's going to have as his presenter at the Hall of Fame?
I would say right now, Dick LeBeau.
Dave, do you agree, or do you have someone else in mind?
I didn't think about it, but I think Brian's choice is the only one that comes off the top of my head as well. Would be LeBeau.
The only other person I could think of is maybe Ryan Clark. Ryan Clark, who played alongside him in the secondary. He's obviously articulate enough to be on television. He'd probably be able to tell some really cool stories. Someone said Ed Reed in the live chat. I don't think that's going to be his top.
Ike Taylor, Hines Ward, maybe.
Maybe. I mean, yeah, you never know. But I think Dick LeBeau would be the guy. Those two were very close. And heck, maybe it's Debo. I doubt it. But So, all right, that's a good starting point for us on the Around the Horn. Dave, what's your Around the Horn segment?
Yes. Well, just one last thing to say about Brian's was that, like, Donnie Shell was 5-time Pro Bowl, 3-time All-Pro. LC Greenwood was 6-time Pro Bowl, 2-time All-Pro. When I say All-Pro, meaning first team. So they were there similar. And like we said, before they even kept stats, apparently everyone says he would have had 4 sacks in a Super Bowl. So personally, I didn't see the Super Bowl. I didn't, but you can go back and watch that yourself. So if one guy was going to get in now and it was going to take another 10 years, I am glad that it was Donnie Shell, because he's still alive to do it. But that still doesn't mean that LC shouldn't get in. He needs to get in there as well. So my thing is, I'm going to kind of cover 2 things with one, because I think one is the answer to the other. And it was something that Jeff actually threw my way that I hadn't really caught any comments about this going out about it today, was that Art Rooney II, in his time with speaking to the Pittsburgh beat writers, said that the Steelers have always, well, I don't know about always, but at least recently, they have a run game coordinator and a pass game coordinator for the team that comes up with a game plan each week that they basically present to the offensive coordinator. But they just don't name who those people are. They're not part of their official title. And that's very interesting, because we heard about this for the first time earlier this season, that last season it was Mike Munchak who was the run game coordinator. I brought up the whole issue in the article was, well, who was the passing game coordinator that other than Fiechner, since there was no quarterbacks coach? Was it the year before? Was it Coach Drake? So when he passed away, did they lose both of those things going into this season? And who was it this season? I'm not sure who it was either way, but I tell you who I think it is for the passing game next year, and that's their new hire as their quarterback coach, Matt Canada.
Canada.
Yeah. Blame Canada, right?
I have to be honest. I have to be honest here. When the Steelers signed Matt Canada, I knew who he was because of his time at Pitt, and especially because his time at Maryland as the interim head coach after that horrendous incident that took place at College Park. We live in Maryland. That was all over the news here, and rightfully so. The one thing, though, that as I read more about him, there's a really good article on Sports Illustrated on Matt Canada and how he did not coach in 2019 and where he was and what he was doing. And I had no idea about basically, I had no idea about the style of coach that he is. This guy is an outside the box thinker when it comes to offense. And if people want to get a mental image of what he likes to do offensively, the Kansas City Chiefs, the Chicago Bears, the Seattle Seahawks, there's a couple other teams have already started to adopt some of his philosophies offensively. You see those Kansas City Chiefs with Tyreek Hill in the backfield doing these crazy motion routes. That's Matt Canada. That's the style of offense he likes to run. He likes the jet sweep. He likes all those crazy motions. I don't know if Randy Land is going to accept this amount of fun into the offense. I just don't think it's going to happen. I think Randy Land is going to say, listen.
But he can't shut it down for forever.
I know Randy Land's going to say, look, I know Randy Land sounds like a fun place. This is not a fun place. This is a place where dreams go to die. You have a dream of catching a big touchdown. Welcome to Randy Land, folks. This is not where that's going to happen. This is where we're going to run the Wildcat until the Wildcat is extinct. This is where we're going to do. I could go on. I don't want to. I don't want to waste your time. But that's what I agree with you, Dave. I hope that's what they're doing. I just don't know if it's actually going to change anything. Does that make sense?
I love this version of Jeff, by the way. I love Randy Land Jeff. This is awesome. I love when he gets that bee in his bonnet. Yeah, you know what? You think about Terrell Austin when you think about this Canada. All right. Matt, is it Matt Canada? Okay, yeah, yes. Matt Canada. So with this guy coming in, they're already thinking about him. Wes and Ali already said it in the live chat. They're already thinking about this guy as the offensive coordinator, and he's kind of the plan. So to Jeff's point, you know, he might resist some things. Randy might resist some of these things, but he's kind of in a position where you really can't, because if you don't accept the help, then you're non-compliant, and then they're going to get rid of you. But if he goes crazy and does well, you're still the offensive coordinator, and you hope you just take the credit, a la what Keith Butler did this year.
Well, we know Randy Land is not accepting jack squat. Here's another question. It's not so much if Randy Land is going to accept it, is Ben Roethlisberger going to accept it?
Because remember, this is Canada's first stint in the NFL. He's been in college the whole time. He's been specifically offensive coordinator, quarterbacks coach, and even in one stop, he was the, quote, passing game coordinator at one of the schools he was at.
Yeah, and the most
not in the NFL yet.
Right, and his most recent stop was at LSU in 2018. Really weird. He was fired.
His last stop was at Maryland.
Well, right. But I'm talking about as a coordinator.
Yes.
As a coordinator.
He was the coordinator at Maryland before he was promoted to interim head coach.
I hate talking about that situation because it just really makes me angry because as a coach, it's just infuriating. But, you know, a lot of people in that article, he acknowledged that a lot of people said that he has this reputation that he's difficult to work with. And he said, I'm not sure where that comes from. And he said, he had recently gotten married. He said, I've had coaches that had coached with me for, I don't know how many years, all come to the wedding. He said, if you don't like me, you would come to the wedding. I don't know. I think it's a unique hire. I'll tell you that.
Yes.
based on what I learned about him, there's an article coming out probably early next week from our own Cliff Harris is Still a Punk about Matt Canada, what he might bring to the Steelers offense as a quarterbacks coach or as a pass game coordinator or whatever you want to call it. Is this guy the Terrell Austin of the offense, Brian?
He very well could be. I mean, that remains to be seen. We just don't. I mean, I don't know enough about him yet, but it's addition, and it's addition to Randyland, and Randyland can't be an island. Randyland's trying to be an island, cannot be one. So
welcome to this fun new feature in Randyland. Welcome to Canada, folks.
Maybe it's Tomorrowland from Randyland. Maybe it's that future land. But the thing about it, Jeff, get ready to print out those "Oh Canada" t-shirts when it's a top 10 offense.
Yeah, I had to laugh. Dave wrote the article when it was announced that he was being hired as the Steelers quarterbacks coach. And Dave, what was the comment that someone used?
It was like, I think it was the second comment on the article. He said, "Great, now we can get ready to blame Canada." So that movie was when you were in high school, right, Jeff?
Oh yeah,
99, I think.
Yeah, because I was in college, so I figured, that was.
I still laugh hysterically anytime I hear a Bryan Adams song when they're mad at Canada and the Canada says, "What have we ever done to you?" And they're like, Bryan Adams, like, "We have apologized for Bryan Adams."
I quoted that line yesterday to my wife because she's all excited. She wants to get tickets because it's Bon Jovi and Bryan Adams are going to be around. Ooh. I think this summer. So I think tickets might go on sale tomorrow.
Bryan Adams. I've seen both in concert. They're fantastic.
I want to bring this comment up. Javman says, "Jeff, why are you complaining? You didn't like that Randy held both OC and quarterback coach." No, you're right. I'm not complaining, first and foremost. I don't think that Randy Fichtner is going to really be accepting of any new and fresh ideas. That's what I'm upset about. I think it's a great hire. I think it's great. I think it's a great decision to bring in a quarterbacks coach because whether it's Devlin Hodges, we know it's going to be Mason Rudolph. I think that it's just one of those situations where they needed this position to be filled. This particular coach is very intriguing. I just think that when you have Randy Fichtner still as the offensive coordinator, you have Ben Roethlisberger, who admittedly is kind of resistant to change at times. How outside the box are they going to get in 2020? I don't know. Time will tell. We'll see. Okay. Did anyone else want to say anything about "Oh Canada" before we move on to my Around the Horn segment? That's a great national anthem, by the way. That's one of my favorite national anthems is the Canadian national anthem. Anyways, mine is a question that I posed on BehindTheSteelCurtain.com. That article is still up there right now, and it has a poll in it. And I want to ask you guys the same question that I asked in the article, and that is that Art Rooney II has over and over and over and over again raised his hand and said, "The Steelers want to play in Mexico. Let us play in Mexico." And the NFL's like, we're not letting you play in Mexico. He wants to play in Mexico. I don't know. It's because probably the Steelers have a very large fan contingent south of the border. Yes. That's very well documented, both on our website as well as Steelers.com and Steelers Nation Unite. The one thing, though, is that they play the Jacksonville Jaguars on the road in 2020. Now, we don't know the date or time or anything like that, but when you play the Jaguars in Jacksonville, so to speak, you now know that you have a potential of playing elsewhere. It could be in London. It could be in Mexico. You just don't know. My question for you guys is, since Art Rooney's like, "Let's play in Mexico, Taco Tuesday," what do you all, if you had to choose between London or Mexico, if you had to choose where the Steelers would play out of those two, where would you want them to play? Now, remember, people in the comment section of BehindTheSteelCurtain.com didn't realize that neither was not an option, and they kept saying neither. Neither is not an option. You're going to play a game abroad. I'm not saying that they are. This is hypothetical. But if you're going to have to play a game abroad, would you rather play the game over the pond in London, or would you rather than play south of the border? Brian, we'll start with you.
Probably in London. Then the reason being is, you're going to have that bye afterwards. So it's not going to kill you to go ahead and they're going to go ahead and say, all right, now that's your bye week after that. I also have family in London because of my wife's side, and I would love to try to get away to ninja over there to see a game at the new Wembley.
All
right,
Dave, what about you?
Okay, personally, I would much rather see the team go to Mexico because because mainly not as big of a time difference. And you're talking about going west that the team is used to. I mean, they've done that before. When you're talking about the big time difference going east and everything, lots of players have talked about how much they don't like doing that because of how much it's just a big change when you travel that. Because remember, it used to be a much more dramatic for the West Coast teams to go east than it is for the East Coast teams to go west, because it's just traveling east is more difficult, apparently. So I don't know. I'm not a big traveler. Every time I've traveled, it's been south. So I would say for that reason alone, Mexico. Now, if you want to really talk about realistically, I'm pretty sure that I don't think that the Jaguars are one that they have sent to Mexico before. I thought they were the ones who specifically volunteer for going to Europe, and specifically London. So would be more likely if it was that game where it would be. And we also have to remember that the Steelers cannot give up one of their home games to go to Mexico. That's why they're not picking them as much, because of their lease with Heinz Field. They have to play 10 games there with the 2 preseason games and the 8 regular season games. So because the Steelers aren't willing to give up the home game, or they can't because of their lease, it all depends on who they're playing against. And I see it lining up better for them to send them to London than it would for them to send them to Mexico this year. Because last year was the year they should have sent them to Mexico. That's where they should have played rather than Los Angeles.
I'm going to say Mexico, based on the fact that the last time they were in London was that 2013 season. They played the Vikings over there. They lost. That was their 0-4 start to that year. And even though that year ended in crazy dramatic fashion, I don't like that trip. Mike Tomlin was highly criticized for his handling of the travel. I don't think the team left the United States until Thursday. They were sluggish. They were tired. They admitted that. Whereas the Vikings, and I think, correct me if I'm wrong, Brian, that was Leslie Frazier as the head coach at that time, maybe?
That very well could be, yes.
Okay, they had traveled over, let's say they played on the Sunday prior. They traveled over Monday. They wanted to be there as early as possible to get acclimated, and they played better and they won the game. I'll never forget Greg Jennings running down the field with scoring a touchdown that proved to be the game winner. Le'Veon Bell was a rookie that year. He scored his first touchdown over there.
That was his first game.
Right, and he scored a touchdown.
He did not
in that game,
play in the first 3. I did not get to watch that game. I was I had a golf tournament and I had to listen to it on the radio while I was golfing. So.
Oof, that's rough. Well, it was a bad game anyways. I'm going to say let's go to Mexico.
Yeah.
Why not?
So when was the last time they played in Mexico, the Pittsburgh Steelers?
Shoot, that was in the preseason, wasn't it?
Yeah.
And Jerome Bettis was there. He talked about how horrible it was.
I'm going to say 2000 and either 2000 or 2001, but I'm probably going to say 2000. And it was against the Indianapolis Colts.
Didn't they all talk about how awful that experience was?
Yes.
Maybe I should know Mexico.
My last 2 experiences in Mexico were I would rather not go back.
My honeymoon was in Mexico. We were in Cancun.
Yeah, I was in Cancun too.
That's not Mexico. That's the resort. I've never been to Mexico, so I don't know. But from what I hear is don't travel more than 500 yards away from the resort. Is what I'm told.
We were golfing and there were signs in Cancun that said "Beware of jaguars," and I was like, "Oh my gosh."
Mark Brunell is lurking around the corner.
Yeah. I got a ball stuck in the I was like right next to this sign that said "Beware of jaguars." I'm like, I cannot outrun
Mark Brunell.
I cannot outrun anything. A real jaguar would kill me.
Maybe Tony Baselli.
Hey, what happened to Bad? A jaguar got him.
Fred Taylor snuck out of nowhere and got it.
Cheetahs scare me too. I mean, cheetahs can go from they can go 10 feet with one leap. And so you're not outrunning a real jaguar or a cheetah or anything. So cats scare me.
Well, we have someone from Mexico chiming in the live chat. Alex
Really?
Flores says, don't travel there. And this is coming from a Mexican.
Oh, okay. Well, there you go.
You know what? Real quick, Michael O'Malley says he did 2 weeks in a Tijuana jail, and if that's not a joke, I want to know about that.
Oof. No, my gosh.
Because I really want to know what happened there.
All right, so let's switch gears now and let's get to the title of today's episode, and that is who were the unheralded players from the 2019 roster. Now, look, everyone knows about the trio that's been all pro in every way, shape, or form, and that is TJ Watt, Minkah Fitzpatrick, Cam Heyward. Like they're basically household names at this point in time. But what about those players that really had a great year? It might not have showed up necessarily on the stat sheet, but really, really played well. That's what I define as an unheralded player. And so the question is, I'm going to ask you guys to pick one offensive player, one defensive player as your unheralded players of 2019. Now, if you're watching live in the live chat on YouTube, feel free to chime in and give us your picks of your unheralded player, whether that's offense, defense, or both. And then we'll maybe run through those after we're done. But I'm going to start with Dave. Dave, I know he already knew who his was. He said we were going to steal him. So, Dave, I'm going to let you go first.
No.
Go ahead.
Do offense or defense? Because I have 2 for defense, so I could go second on that one.
Let's do offense first.
We'll go offense. I'm going for offense. I am going with Matt Filer.
Okay.
I felt that he's I feel like he's coming on and doing a solid job there. We were complaining about some shortcomings of some of the other linemen, but he wasn't the one that we were talking about constantly getting torched or beat. I'm not saying he had a phenomenal year. I'm just saying the more you don't hear about an offensive lineman, that's probably the better they're playing. So, as a guy, this was his first year starting all season, and he's not even playing what they say is his best position. So I think he did a solid job there at right tackle. All
right, Brian, what about you? Offense is tough. They were awful.
Wow. It would have to be Deontay Johnson. He was second team all pro as a punt returner. So does he count? Is he unheralded?
It's slim pickings, Brian. So
we'll
allow it.
Look, we did a show back in the summertime, and I remember the production meeting beforehand. Dave's like, I quit if you say anything nice about Deontay Johnson because I hate him so much. We're like, whoa, so we can't really talk about Deontay, but we're doing it now. Here's the thing with Deontay Johnson.
You said we had a production meeting. That was
that's the funnier thing. Yeah, never a production meeting. But Deontay Johnson, but before this show, and it was the Steeler preview in the summertime, so we're previewing each draft pick. And we get to him and we're like, what would be a great year for Deontay Johnson? We're like 3 touchdowns and 30 catches. He basically almost doubled both of those stats.
Mm-hmm.
So right. he was the guy
without Ben Roethlisberger.
Yes. Exactly. Good point, Dave. He was the guy at the very end of the season that you were really counting on. If you said who's the WR1 of the Pittsburgh Steelers, you were probably saying Deontay Johnson at the end of the season.
That's true.
So that's why I'm going to go with DJ 18.
I'm going to cheat. And this is because he does score points, but he's technically a special teamer. I'm going to go with Chris Boswell. Because no one talked about him. He had a tremendous season. I think he missed 1 field goal attempt. And that was
2.
He missed 2. You're right. Yeah, he missed.
But one was a bad hold and the other was over 50.
Right.
Yeah, one was 54 in wind.
And he didn't miss an extra point the entire season. He had it.
Tremendous.
I guess when you look at how horrible his 2018 was and how solid his 2019 was, and yet no one really talked about him. I know I cheated, but like I told Brian, it was slim pickings on offense. So I'm with Boswell because I figured Deontay Johnson would be one. Filer was a good pick. I might even say Big Al could be in this because everyone ripped on Big Al. He's still, in my opinion, one of the best left tackles.
Yeah.
I mean, he's good. But everyone has their own opinion.
He just didn't have as good a year as he had the past couple years. But when it comes to Boswell, I like to throw that stat out. There was one I dug up myself. I didn't see it anywhere else. That's what I do sometimes, is just try to come up with these new. He was the first person or the only person or whatever, and I just figured it out myself. He was the only kicker in 2019 to hit every extra point and be over 90% in field goals. Of kickers that kicked at least, I think I said that was the kicker for at least 4 games or more,
including Justin Tucker.
Yeah, because he missed 2 extra points. Now,
yeah, I know that's what I'm saying.
He's only the 5th kicker to do it since they moved the extra point back to the 15-yard line where they snap it from. So that I thought that was pretty impressive.
Wow, that's a great
stat. He had a great season.
Yeah.
He had a great season,
and no one was talking about it.
Because he wasn't called on to kick game-winning kicks.
You're right.
He didn't have a single game-winning kick.
And that's all he did, and that's all he did in 2017. He made so many game winners in 2017. I like what Brad Jewett says. Unheralded. I'm about to graduate college. I don't know what that means.
Wait,
I like the next comment. I like the next comment.
That's a fun picture. Look at that.
That is a fun picture.
You gotta love Brad there.
Reginald Rivers says, add Dave Schofield for trying to kick a field goal. The kick heard around the world, which has been documented right here on our YouTube channel. If you're listening on audio and you're like, man, this Dave guy tried to kick a field goal. Yes. Go to YouTube, search BTSC Steelers Radio. You have to scroll up a bunch and you will see, what was that, August?
That was my over kicking attempt. When we moved it up 10 yards, I didn't try to over kick it and then was able to not shank it. The whole shankopotamus I had going on.
Thank Carly Lloyd for that.
Man.
All right, but let's go to defense now. Brian, we'll let you start first. Unheralded player on the defensive side of the football. Go ahead.
Well, we're gonna have no problem here because I probably have A, B, C, and D on this. There are some other ones when you guys say him, I'm gonna be like, yeah, I was probably gonna pick him too. But this is a guy that I'm going with because I think he meant more to this team than anybody realizes, and the proof is in the pudding when he came back in week 4 from being gone most of the first quarter of the season, and it's Vinny Vici, number 98, Vince Williams. And the reason I'm saying Vince Williams is that running game, the first 3 games of the season, that rushing defense was absolutely despicable. They were run all over in the Seattle game, the San Francisco game. If they could have stopped the run a little bit better, then they would have ended up winning that game as well. We talk about Connor fumbling, but they couldn't get off the field because they couldn't stop the running game at all. Vince Williams comes back. All of a sudden, this defense is so much better. Now, we give all the credit in the world to Minkah Fitzpatrick. He deserves a lot of credit for stabilizing this defense, but that defense does not get stabilized without Vince Williams stopping the run. And he is the main run stopper on this team as far as I'm concerned.
You can't argue with that, Dave. Who's yours, or do you want to say something about Vince Williams?
Well, I'll say one thing about Vince. I'm going to let you go because I have 2, so I'll let you take one of them and I'll take the other. Because unless you don't pick either of them. The thing about Vince Williams is it's because he finally was able to get back to his proper role. I'm not going to go into the Mackers and Buck and all that other stuff. Just saying he was no longer their best pass defending linebacker. That's not his role. His role was to have another good pass defending linebacker next to him so he can be the big run guy like he was with Shazier. He was able to get back to that this year and really show that that's who he is. They didn't have him playing out of position, and he played great this year.
I'll go with the obvious pick. I'll go with Steven Nelson. Yeah. And that is because, Steeler fans showed an appreciation for Steven Nelson. But from a national standpoint, no, not even close. Mm-hmm. And you look at his numbers and when he was targeted. And the funny thing is I'll never forget when the Steelers picked him up on day 1. I reached out to the Arrowhead Pride editor and asked him, like, hey, Steelers just picked up this guy. He spent his entire rookie contract with the Chiefs. Can you tell me something? Like, give me some stuff I can put in an article. He goes, yeah, I'll give you a breakdown. And it was basically about how whenever he was targeted, he gave up a reception. He was always turned around facing, and he got, you see those routes where they get turned around and they're all discombobulated. That was him. And I'm thinking, holy crap, the Steelers just, they just gave away the heftiest free agent contract in team history to a guy that's awful. And that's the way that they made it out to be. But I'll tell you what, whether Steven Nelson worked his butt off in the offseason, which he did, by the way, if you follow him on social media, or he's just a lot better in this scheme, and then maybe he was in Kansas City. The defense as a whole here is better in Pittsburgh than it was there in Kansas City. He was locked down. And the problem was, and I felt bad for the guy, he had been so good all season that he didn't get targeted that much. And then on the few times where he did get targeted and maybe gave up a reception, I'm thinking about the Buffalo game. I believe the catch was to John Brown.
Yes.
Everyone is just throwing their arms up. Oh, this guy sucks. No, he doesn't suck. It's that playing cornerback in the NFL is really difficult. And you're never going to keep, in my opinion, Revis Islands are gone. Like, you don't have the shutdown guys anymore. But you know what? He was pretty darn close. And
yes,
he wasn't talked about that much. And so I'm going to say Steven Nelson. So that's
he got his pick that game, that Buffalo game.
Yeah. And guess what they did the next play?
Yeah. Oh,
well,
trust me, I know.
The next play was a penalty. But then it was the play after. Yeah, the next play was a penalty, which moved him from the 20.
I'm
to
sure
10.
it was a. I'm sure
then
it was
they
a
waited for the
pre-snap.
2-minute warning, and then they had the brilliant idea.
Yes.
Oh yeah, had to do
right.
Brian knows I'm still mad. I'm still mad.
Yeah. I'm sitting next to him.
He had to hear it the whole way home. We get back into town at 5 a.m. and he's still hearing about it.
Which I agreed. I kept agreeing with him, but he kept on he was selling me the whole time. I'm like, you don't have to sell me. I agree with you.
Okay, so that's my pick. Dave, go ahead. I don't know if Nelson was one of yours or not.
No, he was. He was one because he was the obvious pick in my opinion. So I was kind of hoping someone else would bring him up. But I do want to go back to that. I have something with the trivia segment.
We're getting to that next.
Kind of leans into that. I know, but I'm saying that kind of talks about stuff with him as well. But I'm going to have to say the one person that you never heard anything about, and yet he had his best Pro Football Focus ranking of his career, and that was Tyson Alualu.
Yep.
He came in, and between Javon Hargrave getting the extra time and Alualu shoring up things in there, especially when they were in base, he wasn't big, flashy, or whatever, but he just got the job done. And that's what you need from those guys in there more than anything if you're not always going to be the one who does splash. You just have to make sure you do your job. And he did a great job.
All right. Was your other one Nelson?
Yes.
Okay. All right.
I'm thrilled. This is what I'm thrilled about. Nobody mentioned Bud Dupree, which I thought he was going to be on everybody's list because we weren't talking about him at the beginning of the season.
Well, but at the end of the season we were. We had to change his name from Bud the Dud to Bud the Stud.
But
double-digit sacks.
At the beginning of the season we weren't talking about him, so it's awesome that you have a guy like that you're not talking about.
Okay.
Yeah.
Who else was there anyone else, Brian, that you had on your mental list that we didn't say? Would Mike Hilton be on your list?
Mike Hilton and Cam Sutton were both on my list.
Cam Sutton didn't really play enough for me to be.
But I thought when Cam Sutton was in there, I thought
he played more than what you thought.
And he did have a pick, didn't he? Was it in Baltimore that he had an interception?
I mean, he was coming in and shoring up those, like, he was in the obvious passing downs over Hilton, and he was also
and also in dime.
Yes, and he was helping shore all that stuff up, just like those other guys.
And so, I mean, I love the fact that we're not talking about Bud because that's how deep this team was. No one mentioned Javon Hargrave. There's another guy that had a fantastic season. Joe Hayden had a fantastic season on defense. And a lot of people, Labor Day weekend, when they gave him that deal, a lot of people were like, he's on the decline. Well, 5 interceptions, he's not on the decline.
Would Devin Bush, a guy that they traded up all those 10
I
spots in the draft. Would that be unheralded?
I think that's hard to. It's hard to put him on that list, but
When I hear unheralded, I think of under the radar. That's just kind of what I think of. I don't know if my mentality or the way I think about it is right or not. That's just what kind of comes to mind. So I'm thinking of guys that are under the radar, had a good year, but you're just not talking about them.
I get it.
And Devin Bush, I mean, he made Pro Football Writers of America. He made their all rookie team, and things like that. So, and like you said, they traded up, and he was the 10th overall pick. So,
yeah. Okay, let's get to our trivia segment here because we have a trivia segment. We're going to do some predictions, and then we will be heading to the after party. For those of you that are new, get the disco ball out. We will be.
Oh my gosh, that was so awesome.
I wish I could record that and just play it over again. Hey. So, but still, you'll be able to join us for that, which is we'll be off the wall crazy. I guarantee it. I can already get that vibe from the three of us that it's going to be a crazy show. Let's get to trivia, Dave. What do you got for us tonight?
Okay, this is another one of those crazy stats that I don't look for other people to break it down the way they do. I break it down my own way and figure it out myself. And that is this. I looked at the 2019 Steelers. This is for some information dealing into what we're going to be talking about with the Stat Geek show on Tuesday. This is just the tip of the iceberg. But I was looking at the Steelers defense this year and how many plays, specifically, how many pass plays they gave up of 25 yards or more. Now, this doesn't mean 25 in the air. This just means 25 total yards gained where it was considered a pass play because the ball was thrown forward. It could have even been one of those tap passes, as long as it went for more yards than that. And the Steelers gave up the second fewest pass plays of 25 yards or more. You have any shot in the dark at a number about how many they gave up?
I do.
Go ahead, Brian.
Let's go with 12.
I think that's way too high.
Really?
Yeah, I'm gonna go with 6.
Okay. Well, Brian is answering my next question. So remember that number. The number was 18.
Dang.
18 pass plays. The only team that had less was the New England Patriots, who had 17. But here's what's crazy about those 18 out of those 18 passes. We could break it into pre-Minka and post-Minka. Brian, how many do you think they had post-Minka?
I'm going to say 12.
Yeah, they had 12. So that means in the first 2 weeks, they gave up 6 passes of 25 yards or more. And then in the next 14 games, they only gave up 12, less than 1 a game.
So
that is unheard of crazy.
So you're saying Cam Kelly is not the answer.
I'm saying Cam Kelly is probably not the answer at starter. So
he's not the answer.
And he's not an answer
right
anymore.
now.
He's not even on the roster. So real quick, any idea how many passing touchdowns they gave up of 25 yards or more?
I think that's low.
It is.
I think it's 3.
I was going to say 3, so I'll go 4.
And you would both be correct if you both went with 3. That's how many they gave up.
Nice.
They only gave up 3 touchdowns. And here is the ultimate question, and I hope you guys can chime in together and get this. This is what's crazy. How many of these touchdowns came post Minka?
Let's go 0.
I was gonna say 0. Yeah.
0. All 3 were in the first 2 weeks. 2 in week 1, 1 in week 2. Did not give up another touchdown through the air. I didn't even look at running because I just filtered that out. Through the air, once Minka Fitzpatrick joined the team. That is some crazy stats. Now they did give up a 24-yarder and a 23-yarder, so they did have a couple close, but still, I only looked at that after the fact. I didn't look at those numbers and make my number 25. I started with 25 right off the bat. But I thought that was crazy. I mean, that just shows the difference that one player made. 6 in the first 2 games. That means they were on pace to give up 48. And they only gave up 18. They only gave up 12 more. They gave up 3 touchdowns through 2 games. I mean, that's crazy what pace that would have been on. And they gave up no more after that. That's insane.
Yeah.
Ty says it, and they stopped throwing near him. In the last 8 games, they threw to him about twice, I think.
Yeah.
They hardly went near him. So that's worth an 18 overall pick.
Yeah.
It's been since number 43.
That just shows how it's everybody. Yeah. What was that, Jeff?
It's been since number 43 patrolled the deep secondary for the Steelers that an offense had to say, we need to know where he is on every single play. And what is he going to do? Mm-hmm. That's the type of player Minkah Fitzpatrick is. And if people don't realize that they just need to watch it. Just watch him more often. And if you have the if you want to pony up the money for Game Pass and watch the all 22, it's really evident when you watch it from the sky cam, so to speak.
But when you're sitting there on draft night saying, "Oh, I wish we had a pick," just think about every other team that's picking saying, "I hope this guy's as good as advertised." Hey, the number 18 pick for the Pittsburgh Steelers is better than advertised.
Yeah.
Here's what we're going to do. When we get to the draft night, when we get to that number 18 pick, we are going to look at who the Dolphins took and who each one of us would have taken. We are then going to compare that. We're going to come back on the show 3 years from now and compare their stats and see if they were anywhere close to what.
Screw that, man. On draft night, when they announce the 18th pick, I'm publishing an article that states with the 18th pick, the Pittsburgh Steelers select Minkah Fitzpatrick, safety from Alabama. And we're going to come on this show and we're going to talk about how great Minkah Fitzpatrick
is. And he's already all pro.
Yeah, he's an all-pro player.
I'm going to predict
first round guaranteed all-pro player.
I'm going to predict that the ceiling for this guy is probably 5 interceptions in his first year with the Steelers, in his rookie year with the Steelers.
And the funny thing is that he's still only going into his 3rd season.
Yeah.
I think he's still
23 years old.
He's like 23,
they might rest him the first 2 games, so they only give him 14. You know what I mean?
I'm definitely going to be pumping out some Minkah Fitzpatrick. That's what you guys are right. You guys are writers for the site. You guys are just hearing this because I just said it, but that's what we're doing on draft night, day 1. We're going all Minkah all the time. Yep. I'm throwing out highlights. The Steelers' number 1 draft pick in 2020, Minkah Fitzpatrick highlights.
We need somebody with good editing skills, and I'm talking about TV video editing skills to edit. And the Steelers with the 18th pick select, and then you splice it together. Fitzpatrick, safety, Alabama, and then cut to
I will do that only if after they say Minkah Fitzpatrick, they can somehow dub Dave going, "Hey," afterwards.
Bo, hook us up with some graphics if you're listening, Bo.
So okay, let's real quick.
Wait, Brian, maybe we all need some Fitzpatrick jerseys in order to celebrate the occasion, so we can all be prepared for it.
You know what? Maybe some super chats could go a long way into getting that done.
Speaking
maybe
of jerseys,
they just fell off the boat.
You know what? The crowd doesn't know this, by the way. The crowd, you've never said what you got for Christmas from your good friend BAD, Jeff.
Brian got me a Mason Rudolph jersey for Christmas, and I don't know what to do with it right now. I mean, I have it. I'm appreciative. I thanked him very much for it and tried it on. Fits great. I don't know what to do with that thing.
Yeah,
Brian,
you almost got a number 6 jersey, but I ordered that one too early.
Trust me, when it comes to stuff with Mason Rudolph, Jeff doesn't really know how to handle any kind of Steeler presence to come his way about that.
Well, David got me an autographed Mason Rudolph football, and I'm like, I don't know what to do with this now.
It's one little signature on the whole ball. You got to fill with another one.
Yeah, I was literally going to put a shelf behind me and like have the ball on it if he played well. And it's like, well, I'm not going to do that. So Okay. Real quick.
I'm ready for an after party, guys.
Well, let's predict the championship weekend first before we go to the after party.
Oh yeah.
Okay. Championship weekend's coming up. It's going to be great. It's also a depressing day for me because it's the last day you're going to have multiple games on a Sunday, and it's just it's reaching its end, and I hate it because I love the NFL and I love NFL football and I love just watching it. Let's start with the NFC. Green Bay goes to San Francisco. Dave, do you have the line on that game or anything? If not, it's not a big deal. I really don't care.
I have it from a couple days ago. I haven't seen if it's changed. Both lines were 7.5 when I checked, when I did the bookie article.
Easy enough. So 7.5 for both games. Who you got, Brian?
27-13 San Francisco 49ers.
Oh, okay. What about you, Dave? What do you think is going to happen?
I'm also going to go with the 49ers as well because, frankly, I said this on Stat Geek, I trust their head coach more.
Okay. See, I'm sorry, you said 49ers? You're going with 49ers?
Yeah, I think they'll cover as well.
We're going to make it a clean sweep. I think the 49ers win 7.5.
Yeah, it's 7.5.
Man, 7.5. That is, Vegas is so good. They always make it be like, well, I'm going to say that they cover. Not by a lot, but I think that they cover. And then we go to the AFC side of the ledger, and the Kansas City Chiefs host the Tennessee Titans. Brian, who you got?
That's dropped to 7, just so you guys know.
Got it.
Rather than 7.5.
Okay. I really want to say the Titans. I can't. I'm going 38-27 in favor of the Kansas City Chiefs, especially after seeing them score 51 points in 3 quarters the other day. And you don't, after coming back from being 24 zip down, you don't lose.
Yeah.
In the next game, you just don't.
Dave, what do you think?
Brian said some very wise things. I think Tennessee will be able to run the ball like crazy, but I still don't think it'll be enough to keep up with the Chiefs' crazy offense. So I'm going to say the Chiefs. I'm going to say I'm half tempted to take the push and say they win by exactly 7. Boy, I wish it was 6.5. I really, really wish it was 6.5. But I'm also going to take the over, which is right now 53.
The last time these two teams played in the postseason, I believe, was just a few years ago. And that was when I saw one of the craziest postseason plays in a long time. And that was the play where Marcus Mariota rolled to his left, threw a pass. It was batted down by a pass rusher. He catches the ball and then runs it in for a touchdown. That was when they upset. That was 2017 because the Steelers were on a bye week, and that was a wild card round. Yeah, I believe it. Am I correct there, Brian? Am I thinking?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, it was the night before the Jaguar disaster.
Let's not bring that up. So it's crazy. These two teams are playing again. This is a lot higher stakes. I don't think, like Dave said, I think they're going to be able to run the ball, but when Patrick Mahomes is throwing touchdowns at the clip that he does, you're not going to be able to win by running the football. You're going to have to throw it. So their only hope is with Tannehill. If they have any chance, I think they have to go with a come out throwing mentality because I think the Chiefs are going to sell out to stop Derrick Henry, as they should. But I still think the Kansas City Chiefs win, and I think that they cover.
I will say this, though.
It doesn't matter if they sell out to stop Derrick Henry. All the teams have been trying to do that, and they fail.
Well, I get that, but I'm saying
the box, he's going to run on them anyway.
But they do have they do have the weapons.
I would not be surprised. Yes, they do, but I would not be surprised if the Tennessee Titans win the time of possession by as much as 10 minutes and still lose the game by more than a touchdown.
Let me go ahead and say this. If something happens that you have a repeat of last week and the Titans are up 24-0, they're not going to lose the game going up 24-0 like the Houston was. I mean, Bill O'Brien, he's lucky he kept his job after that game because there were some inexplicable decisions made. So what I'm going to say here is I think Mike Vrabel's a fantastic coach. I think we're going to be talking about him in years as being one of the best in the league. He might be the gold standard one of these days. I just don't think it's the Titans' time. But I would not be shocked if they won this game. But if I'm in Vegas, I'm putting my money on the Kansas City Chiefs.
All right. So before we call this a show, Snowman puts $5 in the tip jar. We appreciate the donation. He said, are the Steelers adding more coaches besides Matt Canada? The answer to that is going to be yes. And it's going to be in the form of a wide receivers coach. Art Rooney II alluded to this, that they expect to have that done by the time they get onto the Senior Bowl, which is next week. I think that the Steelers are looking to that. I don't think that what's his name? The coach that filled in the interim coach. Yeah, I don't think Ray Sherman wants to, nor did the Steelers maybe want him to be their full-time wide receivers coach. Look for them to make that move sooner rather than later. And I think that'll be it, though. I don't think they're going to bring in an outside linebackers coach as much as I would like them to do that. I think they're just going to roll with what they've done. They added Matt Canada. They'll add a wide receivers coach. Guys, you see any other coaches that they could be adding in terms of the actual position itself, not potential candidates?
Well, I think they need to add a few conditioning coaches just for Ben Roethlisberger alone.
you and Lance. Sir Lancelot loves to talk about Ben's conditioning. He wants to see him. He wants a picture of Ben on a treadmill. I said, what is that going to show you? He goes, it means that he's doing something. I'm like, okay.
I want to see, a few of you will appreciate it. Jeff, you won't, because you've never seen this movie, and it's an awesome movie. We talked about it a couple of weeks ago. I want to see Ben Roethlisberger doing the Brian Shoot, running up the stadium steps with a log on his back from Vision Quest. That's what I want to see. Or I want to see I'll put in Jeff terms, I want to see the Rocky IV montage.
Yes. All right. I got you there now. So if you want some more conversation like this, which is more movies and random stuff that we think about, come on over to the after party. That'll be showing up live here on YouTube in about 5 to 10 minutes. So stay tuned. We will be back. If you haven't subscribe, turn on your notifications. You'll get a notification when we go live. Thank you for listening to the Steelers Preview. Remember, tune in, tell a friend, and subscribe. We'll see you.